In the land of 10,000 lakes, a remarkable movement was born. Welcome to Hometown Hero Outdoors. We are dedicated to honoring our military service members, veterans, and first responders by providing them with unforgettable outdoor recreational opportunities. We believe those who have served and sacrificed so much for our country and communities deserve a chance to reclaim their spirit and find healing in the great outdoors. This is Hometown Hero Outdoors.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hometown Hero Outdoors podcast. Today, I'm excited to have a senator on from the state of Minnesota here. Her name is Senator Judy Seeberger. Last year, I was able to meet the senator regarding Hometown Hero Outdoors and the things that we do for our nation's heroes. And we had some unique conversations. And last year, Senator actually sponsored and authored one of our bills that went over to the last session. Unfortunately, that was unsuccessful this last year, but that's okay because we'll try again. But it's a quick bio about Senator Judy Seeberger here. She has spent her life dedicated to service and helping others. She has served as a public school teacher, paramedic, member of her local fire department. She's an attorney, and she is the wife of a now retired Navy captain and mother to two amazing boys. She understands the dedication and sacrifice that come with public service, and is unafraid to stand up for what is right, even as uncomfortable or comes at a personal cost. As a proven leader, Senator Seeberger brings her extensive firsthand knowledge of public education, emergency medical services, military family life, and the law to the Minnesota Senate. She uses a unique perspective to work diligently for the people in her district, driven by her unwavering commitment to help others. So thank you for being here, Senator. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You know, you have a very unique and diverse background. I appreciate being able to approach someone who has some experiences, especially with your emergency medical services, the fire department experiences, being married to a veteran, and being able to leverage those experiences throughout your career to apply them in your world. I think it's a very unique life that you live, and you have quite the vast experience, and I'm sure that's serving you well in your current role at the Senate.
No, you're absolutely right. You kind of hit it with my bio. I joke that I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So I keep embarking on new adventures, and that really has informed how I accomplish my work and how I kind of approach problems in the Minnesota Senate.
No, that's fantastic. And one thing with Hometown Hero Outdoors too is we don't get very political. We try to stay in the middle, and not comment on too many things here and there. On this last year, I think what was kind of cool about the organization too is, I think predominantly it's pretty common and known knowledge that a lot of people in these professions are pretty conservative individuals. But I think it's very cool that, that we were able to talk both sides of the parties, because it's all about the one mission of helping our heroes, people who served in the military, the veterans, and the first responders. And, I greatly appreciate your support throughout this last session and being able to help author these bills and whatnot. We had that one day with being the testimony at the Senate, and that was a whole new experience. But so let's talk about a little bit about your background when it comes to your personal life. So let's start with your career. What did you start with early on in your life?
Well, I began my career as a lawyer. So that's how I started. And that's actually where I am right now today in my law office, taking care of some business, trying to get caught up from session. And then I transitioned into, when I was in my 40s, I went back to school and got my license and master's as a public school teacher. So I'm a grade 5 through 12 English teacher as well, and worked in the public schools for, for the past 12 years.
Wow.
I also joined the fire department and became an EMT, and really liked that. So I went back to school, became a paramedic, and I've been working in that field now for a little over 10 years. And truly enjoy all of it. And then, of course, got into politics, and now I'm in the Senate.
How do you balance all of that? That is a lot.
It is a lot, as a matter of fact. And now with my new responsibilities in the Senate, I'm kind of cutting back on some of the other stuff. I'm substitute teaching, so I'm not uh, being a full-time teacher anymore, or even a part-time teacher. So kind of focusing my work on the Senate for right now, but I still get out on a truck. I'm still on the fire department. I still work for a couple other agencies doing paramedic stuff on a casual basis, and that kind of helps balance my brain.
Oh, well, I mean, everyone needs an outlet, and you do have a lot of public service out there, and I know that it could I know it fills my cup. I'm sure it helps you as well.
I get the most out of life, and I feel the most rewarded when I'm helping others.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. So you also serve the Afton area. Let our listeners know which area that you are representing.
My district is 41, and that runs from the city of Grant in the north down through Lake Elmo, West Lakeland Township, Baytown Township, Afton, the Lakeland cities, Denmark Township, Cottage Grove, Hastings, and Nininger Township.
Just a small area.
Just, it's only 41 miles top to bottom.
Yeah, it's quite the wide experience. And for a lot of our listeners, that's Washington County, Minnesota area. Is that the only county, or does it just extend into Dakota a little bit, or?
It extends into Dakota. So I have both
Okay.
Washington and Dakota counties.
Yeah, so that's quite the vast area. And, I live in the Stillwater area, and that's why Senator Seeberger, I'm just right on the other side, I believe, of your district, because I think Senator Housley's my senator, but close. In Afton area, if you have not been to Afton, Minnesota area, is absolutely gorgeous. Love that area.
I love it. It's beautiful. I say I'm in the most beautiful district in the state.
I would concur. I know there's some really close seconds up north, but it's a very beautiful area on the St. Croix River through Afton area. The St. Croix is protected and has a lot of different regulations that help protect the area, make it scenic, and continue to thrive as a resource that we use as an organization quite frequently, actually. So it's pretty cool. But getting back to your career here now, as far as you said, you are started as an attorney. What type of law do you practice?
I practice what's called insurance defense. So I defend people and businesses who are sued in civil court. An example is you have liability insurance on your car. If you get in a car accident and somebody sues you, part of the cost of part of your liability coverage is the cost of a lawyer to defend you. So that's what I do.
Oh.
I pop up, you get sued, I pop up and defend you throughout the lawsuit.
That's interesting. I did not know that part. That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
And you've been practicing that for how long?
28 years.
Wow. A lot of changes in those 28, I bet.
A lot. Yeah. The most significant is the transition from everything being on paper to everything being electronic. There was quite a learning curve there, but it's better.
No, that's crazy. That's, that like that in law enforcement too, everything going from paper tickets all to electronic and whatnot. That was quite the transition and uphill climb trying to figure out what that looked like. And then you transitioned, you said, into being a school teacher. Like, what got you prompted into teaching English?
I was an English major in college. The language arts has always come naturally to me. And as an attorney, I use language both in the spoken and written form, as a part of what I do. I already had a bachelor's degree in English, so it kind of made sense. It was an area that I was comfortable. And the push to get me into teaching was my youngest son. My youngest son has autism and some mental health challenges and really struggled in school. And I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it in the public school system. And if I was going to have to homeschool him, I at least wanted to know what I was doing, get some training in pedagogy and understand what it is to be a teacher. And that drove me into getting my teaching degree. And then, of course, once I got in the classroom, I absolutely loved it. It's my favorite job that I've ever had. It's hard. It's a lot of work. You don't get paid very much, but it's the best thing I've ever done. And someday I hope to get back into a classroom. Most fun, most favorite job I've ever had.
Oh, that's good. Working with kids, I have a few, to say the least. We have 7. We're a blended family.
Oh.
So we're busy, but I love kids and I love being able to watch them grow and how observant they become, and being able to pass on that knowledge that we have to the kids is very rewarding. And I'm sure you get a lot of that in the classroom and from your
I
children.
agree. Yeah, both sides, the kids and the other kids, right?
Right.
Um, it's as a teacher, my favorite is when I'm able to make that connection with a student and kind of see the light bulb go on, and those are really rewarding moments.
Oh, that's cool. That's really good. So then, as we go into the other couple career fields here too, I just want to let our listeners know that one of the things that we're going to discuss here in a little bit are talking about some of the complications or issues that our military service members, veterans, and first responders have some of these hurdles that we're doing, some of the initiatives that Senator Seeberger is working on, maybe things that stand out to her or what she wants to do here in the future in the state of Minnesota. I think those are important topics to touch on. That's been kind of a rough run here in the state for the last year when it comes to our first responders having complications, not only with mental health in their career field in the state, but also with some of our partners being taken too early from us. And I think there's some important topics to talk about. Just want to let everyone know that is coming here, and we're just kind of building on our way there. But Senator, then you got into being a paramedic and working with your local fire department. Like, what prompted that, and how did that look like, and how was the training? Was it eye-opening? Like, all of the things.
Honest to God, I don't know what compelled me to join the fire department. I don't know, a sense of adventure, do something kind of cool, give back to the community. But I have no regrets. It's been a phenomenal ride. They really are my family. They're my second family. When I was first hired, the chief said, we become your family, and it's true. It has been so rewarding to serve my community in that way. Becoming an EMT, it took, 4, 5, 6 months, something like that, to become an EMT. And I started as I was working in that field and learning that job. I really, really found it to be rewarding. And I was hungry for more knowledge, and I wanted to get trained at a higher level. And that's what drove me to paramedic school. I went to paramedic school. That was another 1.5 years to get certified as a paramedic. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm going to keep doing it until my body can't do it anymore. It's a really physical job. It's a lot of work, lifting things, lifting people in and out, crawling in situations. It's hard on your body. So I'm going to keep doing it until physically I can't do it anymore.
No, it's fantastic. It's that mental checklist too, they have to go through with every patient, and everything, nothing's the same ever. And the physical demand, I'm sure, as you go into the call, you kind of get in your mind with this calm and repetition. But when you get there, you have to have that calm, collect manner, but also hit that checklist and ensure that you're checking all the boxes essentially with your patients. And I think it's super cool that you have such a wide variety of knowledge here, and honestly, with the first responder side of things, you literally got into the ring with everyone else and said, I'm going to learn this, and I think that's very important, especially when you're already an attorney, a teacher, a mother, a wife. Like, that's another feather in the hat, but being able to see the behind the scenes, that's significant.
It is, and you kind of hit it on the head. No two calls are the same. Even if you're responding to a patient you've already had or a situation you've already been in, no two calls are ever the same. And I want to take this opportunity to give a shout out to our law enforcement. I know that lately they've been kind of on the receiving end of not so good commentary. And I want to say, a lot of times I show up, I count on them to keep me safe on scenes. And I'm not on every call that they're on, but we share a lot of calls together. And I see the risks that they take. As a paramedic and EMS, we kind of hang back until the scene is safe. That's their job. And they do a phenomenal job of keeping the scene safe when I'm there. I know that they don't necessarily want to take on the medical end, and that's fine. I'm happy to jump in and do the medical stuff. But I've been on plenty of scenes where kind of your spidey sense goes off, and you know that things can change in the blink of an eye. And I'm super grateful to law enforcement for making sure that they keep me safe. And I bring that with me to my work in the Senate, and I will always have their back as a lawmaker.
It's very much a very integrated web amongst all first responders, and everyone has a very key component in their response. And I'm glad that you touched on that. There's times with paramedics, EMTs, whatever, whoever's riding an ambulance, there are times where there are volatile situations, even with the medics, not necessarily intentional. Some individuals may be going through something that's drug induced or some mental health issues, but I've seen medics and paramedics being hit, in an ambulance, needing restraint and medication to help calm those nerves. So I know that you guys are not immune to that either. It happens, and unfortunately, it happens more often than it should.
It can be pretty common, sadly. Since COVID, we've really seen an uptick in mental health calls. That period of time was hard on everybody, and I get it. And I think, the best thing that I can bring to the table is some understanding, hopefully some de-escalation, hopefully a listening ear. And that's kind of the mindset I like to take when there's somebody in crisis that we are called to assist with and hopefully help. And, but sadly, it doesn't always work. And some people are violent and unpredictable. And again, that's where law enforcement comes in. Super grateful for their help. But, sometimes the tables can turn in the back of the ambulance when it's just me with the patient. And, there are times where my personal safety is at risk, and I got to draw on those tools in my paramedic toolbox. And my toolbox as a person walking this earth for 54 years and a mom and everything to, keep me safe, keep my patients safe, de-escalate the situation as much as I can. But yeah, there's times we got to use the soft restraints or medicate the patient as well, just for everybody's safety.
No, it's a very fluid. Every call is very fluid. Some are easier than others, but there are also sometimes things that you take home with you too. Your wheels keep spinning after you take a call, and you might want to take off that uniform and go home and relax. And sometimes those things go home with you as well. It's everyone's human, and I think that we forget that element a lot when it comes to people in these professions, really, that we're not robots. We all have our own mental health and our own mental struggles. And a lot of those things come home with you. And I'm sure you've experienced a little bit of that on your own at times where you've been on a call and they come home with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, there are some that stick with me. And it's important to lean on your colleagues, your supervisors, your friends, your spouse, and get the counseling that you need to work through it, because we are human and it does stick in your brain. And sometimes it's not the call that you think will bother you that bothers you. And to be able to feel supported enough to talk about it is important. And I try to lend that listening ear to my colleagues as well. And, sometimes it comes out in, dark humor or something that maybe someone in the industry only understands, but
we don't have dark humor at all.
But we've gotten better in the industry about raising your hand when we're not feeling okay and reaching out for help. But it's still, as the helpers, it's hard to be the one asking for help. That's
right.
Still kind of a tough one for a lot of us to get over.
Hi, this is Phil, podcast producer for the Hometown Hero Outdoors podcast. I know your time is valuable, and we thank you for listening to our podcast. Can I ask you a favor? On whatever podcast platform you are listening to us on right now, could you please give us a 5-star review? It is very helpful when growing our podcast and expanding the message of HHO. Thank you. Now, here's a word from our sponsors. Voted Best Electrician 7 times between 2016 and 2022, O'Neill Electric was established in 2016 and is located in the Stillwater, Minnesota area. They provide commercial, industrial, and residential electrical installation and maintenance services. Their team strives to be the most helpful electrical contractor you'll ever work with, from the office to the field. Licensed and bonded in both Minnesota and Wisconsin. Go to their webpage at o'neillelectricmn.com. Founded in 1922, the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association, MPPOA, is the largest association representing licensed peace officers in the state of Minnesota and fights to maintain the highest ethical standards in the profession. Licensed police officers with the MPPOA membership have access to the Legal Defense Fund, homeowner and auto insurance, have a voice in the Minnesota legislature, and more. Go to MPPOA.com for more information. Relentless Defender set out to design clothing apparel that police officers could wear with pride. They sell only top-of-the-line apparel, bringing you custom soft ink designs not found anywhere else. Relentless Defender makes it a priority to give back and donates a portion of all sales to various police charities. They stock all products and ship out same day whenever possible. Visit them at relentlessdefender.com.
It is changing. It is getting better. But there are still complications and issues. I mean, I can think of about 5 or 6 suicides that have occurred in the last year, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Paramedic here in Washington County, not too long ago, the trooper, there was another police chief, there was a Metro Transit police officer. I mean, those are just off the top of my head in the last couple months. And it's unfortunate, these professions take a toll, and I do feel that the tides are turning. I do feel like there's additional support out there, like our organization. There's a ton of organizations out there that kind of cater to mental health, but we all kind of go about how do we assist that mental health in a different avenue. But and then your support, that you gave at the Senate this last year, and we received support in the House as well. I think that it really speaks to where your heart is and where you have your goals invested. And that kind of brings me to want to talk a lot a bit about your initiatives. What are the things that got you into politics, number one, and why you decided to go down that road? And then number two, what were the main things that really focused on for you when it came to legislative initiatives that you're hoping to get through and move through?
Well, politics, like anything else, I saw an opportunity and kind of went for it, and here we are.
Right.
Prior to serving in the Senate, I served on a school board and I served on city council. So I've had a little bit of experience in the public sector, working on issues kind of at the ground level that are important to folks. And I love it. I love it. I love dealing with everyday issues that make a difference to people, and kind of getting in there and figuring out a problem and doing what I can to make it a little bit better. When I got into the Senate, I did have a few things that were really important to me. One of those is mental health. That is sort of the huge thing that kind of guides everything that I do. I want to improve the options that we have for folks that need mental health supports. I want to reduce the stigma. I want to fix some of the problems that I see. It's a massive, massive undertaking, but I think if we can chip away at it here and there, make the improvements where we can, if we can help one person, worth it. Like I mentioned in the beginning, my youngest son has some mental health issues, and we've been through some challenges as a family, and it has informed my work. The problems we've run into, how can we make it better? The lack of beds. What can we do to increase beds? What can we do to increase access to beds? The stigma, that's why I talk about it. I talk about it with his permission, to normalize talking about mental health issues. When someone's not doing well, let's be able to talk about it, not make fun of them or not, sweep it under the rug. So all that stuff has kind of been this huge mental health, substance use disorder kind of huge issue that I'm trying to tackle on a lot of different fronts.
No, it's mental health is a huge one, and I appreciate you being forward with it all. I'm in therapy. I've been going to therapy for quite a while, when it comes to what I've experienced throughout my military service and my law enforcement. Like you said before, those small calls that you don't think are going to bother you, the things that come back eventually. But, being able to leverage that personal experience, especially with someone so close to you, I think that makes you a little bit more passionate about all of that, and once you realize this is us, this is me or my family, I think that elevates a lot of that. And I think a lot of people don't realize how close it is to them when it comes to mental health.
No, you're right. And yeah. And I like to bring my son, he's 19, and I like to bring him to kind of show the face, right? Like,
right.
This is my kid. He's a great guy, and he's really fun to be around and super funny. And, but this is the face of mental health struggles and challenges. And we have good days and we have bad days. So does everybody, right? You don't have to have a diagnosed mental health condition to have your good days and your bad days. But you pile something else on top of that, and sometimes it gets a lot more challenging. So I'm happy to be able to talk about it. I'm happy to be able to advocate for greater mental health supports and to be on this podcast and keep talking about it, because that's the only way that we can reduce the stigma and help people get the help that they need, without feeling embarrassed or without feeling shame or not feeling supported in the process.
Yeah. That brings me to think about too, that you are familiar with the nonprofit Abide on the Backside. I think you had visited with them at Canterbury. Is that right?
I did.
Yeah. So for our listeners, Abide on the Backside is ran by Sally Mixon and a couple other partners, and they are a nonprofit out of Canterbury, Minnesota that does equine therapy with retired thoroughbred racehorses. And it's an absolutely incredible way of receiving therapy in a different way. And recently we started partnering with Sally and her team more with Hometown Hero Outdoors, because we can only carry the ball so far when it comes to mental health. We can do the outdoor adventures. We can apply our assist training, which is applied suicide intervention skills training. We can find mental health providers that are there to assist. But then we have Sally down there doing her thing with the retired racehorses. And it's a means or a way for us to be able to refer people to someone who can assist in a deeper, meaningful way, because she is a licensed therapist that engages with different types of therapy, and she can carry the ball a little further than we can. And Senator Seeberger has visited Canterbury and knows Sally and them, and I think that just shows that there is some there's some weight to what she's saying here, that she does support the mental health side of things, as well as carrying our bill. Sally is fantastic, and so is her team. We're actually going to host a mental health suicide prevention walk down at Canterbury with them this upcoming September.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Normally we do it in Stillwater. We've done it for 3 years, but we talked to Sally and we figured, a change of scenery. I love Stillwater, don't get me wrong. But go to Canterbury, experience something different. So we're going to do the mental health walk, and they'll be able to walk the actual track at Canterbury, which is pretty sandy, so that will make your calves scream. But we can endure a little pain to walk for mental health and suicide prevention. And afterwards, we'll have some food available either by Canterbury or some food trucks. People can grab a beverage if they like, but then they can stay for the races afterwards. I want to say it's September 7th, if I remember right.
That sounds great. I'm gonna make a note of that. That would be, if my schedule works out, I would love to be a part of that. Yeah,
that'd be fantastic. So, but what other types of initiatives as a senator have you had when it comes to first responders or military veterans? Because I briefly brought up that your husband is a retired captain from the Navy. So you said after 30 plus years he retired. That's a long time. And I'm sure that you have a lot of topics and passion with the military and the veteran side as well.
It is a long time. Yeah, he retired after 31 years. The military has served us well, but as the parent staying home with the kids, there were some hard times. There were some definite hard times.
Yep.
So I kind of bring that experience into. Certainly, I support military service members. It's not something that I personally would have been able to do. I think sometimes I get a little headstrong, and maybe I wouldn't have been a good fit for the military. But I certainly value those that chose that path, and particularly my husband. I've seen the good work that he's done, the benefit that it's brought us as a family, but also the challenges that come with military service. My interest, of course, lies with the families that support the military service members. As I mentioned, my youngest son has some challenges, and that, as a mom, when my husband was gone, was tricky sometimes, and I really wished he was home a lot of times, but I certainly understood why he wasn't and supported everything that he did when he was in the Navy. So that informs what I do. Before I got into the Senate, I was active in the Yellow Ribbon Network of Washington County. I did that a lot, which supported military service members and their families, and that helped me give back a little bit too. But coming to the Senate with the knowledge of what our service members have chosen to do for us, and some of the residual effects of whatever they encountered while they were serving or after service, has really guided me in the work that I do. Now, I'm not on the Veterans Committee, but I am interested in the legislation that comes up that has to do with veterans. We have the Veterans Home in Hastings, which is part of my district. So it's been important to me to ensure that we're doing right by our veterans when it comes to military service members, but broadening that scope, again, with regard to our first responders, our law enforcement, who I really do think we need to conscientiously lift up and support. They've gotten such such poor treatment, particularly in the media, and by my own party. I mean, I'm a DFL senator, right? I mean, we talked about the partisanship, and my party has not done law enforcement any favors. I support law enforcement. I am out there working for law enforcement, and I want to use any platform that I can to uplift them and really honor their service to those of us in the state and across country. So that's, it's having these kind of views that informs what I want to work on and kind of the direction I try to push for things when it comes to bills that I see coming across my desk at the legislature.
I love your ability to come out and say the things that may not be status quo with either party. I think that's great. With your support of law enforcement and saying that you're DFL, I think that's fantastic. And recently you're awarded an award from the MPPOA, which is the Minnesota Peace and Police Officers Association. Do you want to talk about that award a little bit?
Yeah, I was really honored to receive the Senate Legislator of the Year award from the MPPOA. That's a huge honor for me, and really was humbling to receive that award. I've always said I represent the people in my district, not the party. And there were a few times this past session where I did push back against the party a little bit. And it has to do with really me following what I believe is right and what the right thing to do is. And it's not always what falls along partisan lines. It's what I think is the right thing to do for the constituents in my district, the folks of the state of Minnesota. And that resulted in me pushing back a few times in Judiciary Committee against members of my own party on things that I thought were not in line with my personal beliefs and those that represented the interests of folks in my district. So I'm not afraid to push back when I need to push back. I represent people, not a party, and that guides what I do in my work.
A lot of that applies with what you talked about in EMS recently, was listening and compassion, right? You have to do that as a politician too with your own district.
Yeah. I mean, I represent, my district is kind of equal Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and I represent them all. So I can't come in and say, I can't come in and say I'm only going to do the DFL stuff. I mean, that only, represents a little subset of my constituents. I have to take into consideration everybody's interests and, make some hard decisions and try to walk that line of how can I best represent the folks in my district and serve their interests. That's what I try to do.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you brought up the spouse side of things for the military too. That's not that's not easy. I mean, it's very, very difficult being a spouse of someone in the military and deploying. Were you a Minnesota resident during any deployments or while your husband was gone?
I was, yeah. In 2011, that was a tough year. My husband was mobilized for a year. He was sent off to the Middle East. He was sent to Doha. And he left in March, 3 days after we moved into a new home. Oh, wow. So I had 2 little kids. They were 5 and 7. A dog, a new house to unpack, and a career. I was still working full time as an attorney. It was horrible. I gotta say, it was really rough. Setting up a new house, trying to be the best parent I could be, missing my husband. It was hard. It was a really hard year. But we tried to make the best of it. I always do. I always try, if something kind of hard happens, I try to spin it and make the best out of it that I can. And so the kids and I went to visit them. I took 2 kids on a flight to the Middle East, and we spent a couple weeks over there.
Wow.
Learning about Qatar and the Middle East, and it was over Christmas time. So a little known fact, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Santa, when he goes over the desert, swaps out the reindeer for camels. Who knew?
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yep, we found that out.
I spent almost a year and a half in Iraq, and I never knew that. I was there for Christmas, but that's hilarious. But no, that's crazy to bring the 2 kids way over there. But I mean, not in a bad way. I mean, that area is fairly stabilized, but it's a very unique experience going over there.
It was a good lesson. It was a good lesson for the kids that not everybody celebrates Christmas. Some people do, some people don't. Not everybody loves America. Some people do, some people don't. Right. These are good conversations to have when you're going to the Middle East. And it was a really great trip, and something that we'll never forget.
What are some of the resources that you used or leaned on? I know you talked about the yellow ribbon. I'm sure you know Chuck Haas out of Hugo. Mm-hmm. He's a fantastic volunteer over at the yellow ribbon. What are some of the resources that you leveraged as a spouse while your husband was on deployment?
I did rely on the yellow ribbon folks for support. I had a good friend network that really helped. I had some good support in there was a police chief that was really helpful to me. So I kind of had a network of support kind of pre-built that I was able to really use. The Beyond the Yellow Ribbon folks were really helpful. And just kind of folks that I knew in and around the community were really helpful as well. The military piece, my husband was in the reserve, so he was an individual augmentee, an IA, and so I didn't have like a unit that I could rely on, or other spouses from the unit that went over. We were kind of on our own, so it was sort of up to me to rely on the support that I'd already kind of built for myself to get us through kind of a really difficult year.
Very different from your active military component for those that are listening. And they come to reserve or guards, we were spread out across the state, citizen soldiers. And have full-time careers elsewhere generally, or if you're, active reserve or guard. But, when it comes to spouses, their network is spread far and thin. My old units were Pine City, Grand Rapids, and Hibbing, Minnesota. And I live in the metro, those are nowhere near a lot of my peers. And I went on my deployments when single, which is probably the smartest thing I ever did, just because I saw the drama happen between my peers. But just the networking and the FRG, the family readiness groups, they're there, but they're not as prevalent just because people are spread out. You're not living in a military base and have the housing that's there. So it's pretty difficult. And, there's a thing with the Hometown Here Outdoors too, that we like to share with people too, is, if you have served in any of these professions, in the military specifically, that, we do offer events at times for the military service member and their spouses or significant others, whatever that might be, or their children too, and that helps build that relationship back from time that's lost. I feel that we lose a lot of time with our significant others from being married to our careers, unfortunately. And we try to give that back to them at times. And being able to engage on some of these trips or whatever we have hosted, it does help build mental health back, where they might put them in a better place. And I know some of our ventures have put people in a better mental health state where they're capable of maybe navigating some personal life issues a little better, have some clarity, and then go to people like Sally at Abijah, and help navigate that further and walk down that road. So there's a lot of benefit to what we do here at the organization too, not only for, your spouse or your significant other, but also for the family as well, where it's a giant component or group that can help out with long-term stuff. And that's, again, important why, when we had discussed getting this bill together and putting it up there, I think that, that's one of the components that I think is kind of helps lift things up about why hopefully we can get the support this next session.
Yeah. And that's what I love about your organization. Like I mentioned before, sometimes it's hard to step forward and ask for help. But it's easier to say, I'm going to go fishing, or I'm going to go hunting, or I'm going to, engage in an activity. And then incidental to that activity, right, is kind of where the connections are made and the help can be offered and I think more easily received. So that's what I really like about your organization and things like Abijah's. I don't know what it is about horses, but they're
incredible.
They are. You can just connect with them in a way they're like big dogs, right? Kind of this thing, but there's something else to it, some kind of peace. And I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but really, really helpful when it comes to assisting with mental health and wellness and that kind of thing. So big supporter of these programs, especially your program. And I'm sorry it didn't go anywhere.
That's okay.
That's more of a function of kind of how things kind of crashed and burned at the end. But we're not done. I'll carry the bill again next session, and I'll advocate for it. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have a little more success next time.
Well, I appreciate it all. It was eye-opening, the whole process in general, from, meeting with senators and representatives, and then drafting the bills, going to the state revisor's office, having them put them in paper, learning what yellow jackets are, and is it red jackets? Green jackets for, going as a bill to you to be an author, and then watching the process play out, watching it online. It was just so much. And then I started talking about going to a committee conference, and that just made my head explode. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So
it's crazy. A lot. It's a foreign world, and to be honest with you, before I got elected, I wasn't all that familiar with it myself either. I learned fast. It is kind of a strange process. And, I commend you for jumping right in and learning it. And again, I'm happy to help, happy to keep working on it, and keep being the sponsor and the author to move it through.
I was lucky. I had a couple lobbyists that kind of lent me some advice over time. Bill Struzinski, he's up in Scandia area, long time, been in working at the governor's office for a while, and now he's a lobbyist for quite a while. The MPPOA lent me some other lobbyists. Just different advice, and it's intimidating, getting down there. And I mean, I'm not someone who puts on a suit often. So, getting down there and trying to rub elbows and let people know who you are and why they should give your organization money. That's a big hill to climb, but it was very eye-opening. I feel more comfortable with it. And then having conversations and relationships with the senator here and then other representatives. Representative Hill's actually my neighbor. He carried our House bill. He's just a couple houses down. So it was just very eye-opening and interesting but rewarding. A lot of learning.
This is your Financial Cop, Money Minute.
Nothing starts with a plan unless you have a budget. You can't pay off debt, just like you can't really technically save for retirement and a vacation and other things without understanding what your budget is. And so I had to get a grasp of what my outflow versus my inflow was. And I kind of came to a realization that, we have this gift in law enforcement called overtime, right?
Yep.
And far too many of us use overtime as a mechanism to elevate our standard of living. Well, I changed and said, you know what? We're going to use overtime to build our financial strength, and I'm going to use it to accelerate things.
This is your Financial Cop, Money Minute.
But yeah, so with your political journey and just real quick, what are some initiatives that you're thinking about engaging this next session? That's literally just around the corner almost.
Yeah, the interim goes fast. So we started working on some EMS legislation this past session. I was co-chair of the EMS task force that went around the state and learned about some of the issues that our various EMS agencies are facing in greater Minnesota, in suburban areas and urban districts. And it's stuff that we all kind of knew about, but we really took a deep dive and started tackling some of those issues. We're going to be coming up with a report here in a few weeks with some recommendations on ways to improve how we deliver pre-hospital care here in the state of Minnesota. So we started that process just this past session with some funding, some emergency aid, and some other initiatives when it comes to, we're kind of reimagining how we do EMS. And we're just starting on that process. So what I'd like to see is I want to build out kind of a more vibrant system in the state, particularly in greater Minnesota, where you have geographical challenges and staffing challenges, which leads to response times that are too long, and transport times that are too long. We keep closing hospitals. You got to drive farther. So how do we make it better? I'd like to incorporate more telehealth, right? If we have a paramedic on scene and we can get a doc to kind of coordinate, maybe we can provide more care to the patient in their home so they don't have to go to the ER. Which, as we know, are full. Our hospitals are all full. So if we can take some of the burden off of that and kind of transition how we provide pre-hospital care, I would like to see if we can build that out a little bit. So I have a lot of ideas in my head of how we can improve EMS delivery here in the state, and I'm kind of excited to start rolling that out. That's a huge initiative for me. That builds into the mental health piece. A lot of folks in crisis, mental health crisis, or even before they get to a mental health crisis, are coming to our emergency departments. And that's, adding to the strain on our hospitals. So how can we better deliver care to folks that need mental health services without having to transport them by ambulance to an emergency department where they may or may not get care, where they may get boarded, waiting for a bed? How can we improve that system upstream to help people sooner and help them in their own homes, in their own communities? So those are, I talked about the mental health piece that plays into it when it comes to emergency medical care, EMS services. That's a big one that I'm working on. That's in process right now that I'm really excited to see roll out.
Yeah, I remember when I was up on the Mille Lacs area, that was one of the things that was a big struggle up there was the EMS. I remember they were understaffed, spread way too far. I think Mora and Onemia were the closest hospitals that we had at the time. And the next one was Aiken, and that was not close. And a lot of times responding to calls, it was first responders with your minimal training, and sometimes you had to wait 40 minutes for care, if not more, or
and that's
flight.
not acceptable. That's not acceptable.
Yeah.
We established a couple innovation zones this past session in St. Louis County and Otter Tail County, where we're going to have a sprint medic model to augment the volunteer paid on call EMS service that already exists. So we have a full-time on-duty paramedic who will be in a squad ready to respond to any call. And that person can get to the call before the BLS ambulance volunteers, arrive at the station and get underway. The medic can start providing immediate care, ALS care to the patient, which, the numbers tell us the outcome is better the sooner you can get ALS care to the patient. So we're going to roll that out. It's going to be a pilot program for 2 years. Hopefully we're going to learn from that to hopefully be something we can establish statewide to help with our volunteer ambulance services that are really struggling when it comes to personnel and sort of the challenges that come with running a volunteer service.
No, that's fantastic. I think it's needed. It's underdeveloped areas, people spread out, not enough training, response times. I mean, that all factors in. And if you're not trying, then you're not helping, right? I mean, you got to engage and try something new. And if that's not working, try something different. Well, Senator, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. I know we hit a lot of different topics. I think you were the very first paramedic that we've had on the podcast. And then you were many hats. We expanded to EMS and HHO 2 years ago, and it's still a profession that we're trickling into, but it's growing, and more EMS and fire are joining us. And, as we saw, unfortunately, in Burnsville, Minnesota this last year, we had 2 police officers and a firefighter paramedic killed, and, they're struggling. And we're there to help give them some support. I just did a fishing launch with some of the Burnsville officers recently, and whoever could join, and hoping to get more out in the near future with them. But, I think that us trickling into those career fields is growing, and that's needed. And, I do have one thing that we could talk about more later up is, we've been getting some feedback from some of our agencies regarding gifts. So some city attorneys are translating the gift laws for fire, EMS, law enforcement, where us bringing them fishing is considered a gift, and they can't accept that. As a 501c3 nonprofit where we're not receiving anything in return and there's no catch, so maybe that's something that we can have some further discussion on. I understand the concern, but at the same time, I'm a law enforcement officer myself, and if I bring a law enforcement officer fishing, to me, that's no different than us going to my cabin and bringing a buddy out. Where do you draw that line? And we're just looking to help, and
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Hopefully we can brainstorm some ways to make that a little bit easier to do, and take that out of the equation. We'll deep dive that, but yes, thank you, Senator. Thanks for coming on. Thank you for all your support. September 7th, I'll touch base with you on that for the walk. Sorry, we're going to miss you on the river cruise this weekend. That would have been fun. That would have been fun, but I'm going to be up north fishing.
No, enjoy your time fishing. It's needed, especially after last session, before next session. I've been asked about 1 million times when I'm going to get into politics. I'm just like, I'm good right now. But thank you for everything. Thank you for serving the people listening, and being supportive of the organization. And again, we don't dive into politics much, but honestly, these careers are affected from everything. Few and far between. Politics create climates, and I think it's important for you to have your voice here and be able to voice those your support and where it's needed and what your initiatives are. So thank you very much.
I appreciate you having me on, and I'm happy to talk to you anytime about these issues. They're so important.
Well, thank you, Senator, and enjoy your time fishing. And we will touch base probably in the next month or two with session coming around the corner. So thank you very much. Again, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, from the Hometown Hero Outdoors podcast, thank you for tuning in today. Please join us in a couple weeks for the next podcast. Thank you.
The Hometown Hero Outdoors podcast is made possible by the following sponsors: O'Neill Electric Contractors, the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association, Relentless Defender Apparel, and Financial Cop Financial Advisors. Thank you for listening to the Hometown Hero Outdoors podcast. For more information, visit our website at hometownherooutdoors.org.